A real writer with a true comic spirit, James Joyce. Along with Joyce and Beckett, Flann O'Brien constitutes our trinity of great Irish writers. Edna O'Brien. If we don't cherish the work of Flann O'Brien, we are stupid fools who don't deserve to have a great man. Flann O'Brien is a very great man. Anthony Burgess. Hello. Welcome to my channel. My name's Alan, and I wish I could have participated more in the Irish Readathon. It's been a really busy month, March has it not? But I want to talk about two books here related to Dublin, specifically Ireland in general, specifically for the Irish Readathon, and I'm really glad I did. I never read Flann O'Brien before. I did know, I'd heard about the novel, The Third Policeman, and I'm going to read that probably sometime this year. But so I knew he was known for being a humorist, a satirist, and much of the stories and pieces in here are humorous. It has unpublished work. It has like original copies of where the stories appeared in magazines. He wrote in several different names. He wrote in his Irish names, born and died. Well, he was born in Ireland, but he died in Dublin too. But anyway, a lot of it, like he writes in that second person, talks to the reader, stories about drinking, a lot of stories about Ireland, like when I met William of Orange, and it's really funny, second person type things. I'm Telling You No Lie from 1943, and he wrote this under Lear O'Connor. Here's like the head, they call them headstones, would appear in here, and then he'd write the story. So the headstone, it's like looking back across the years of a lifetime, as colorful as it has been exciting, I think I shall experience a little difficulty in the selection of a suitable subject for this feature. For I ask you, what more memorable, more breathtaking character could I possibly find to write about than my own inimitable self? And he goes on in the story, the kindly caress of a mother's hand was denied to me from the beginning, as poor Mum had come to a tragic end some 2 years before I was born, having been fatally shot through the corsage in a saloon brawl. So it goes off like that. His mother died before he was born. I always thought Irish whiskey was spelled W-H-I-S-K-Y with no E. It's always been like that with Joyce and all. Look right here. Irish whiskey with an E. Go figure. What I did, my find in here was a story that I won't be forgetting soon, and neither were you, because I've never read anything quite like it, ever. I took a walk earlier today out in the sun to a park, and I read the story. The story is called 2 in 1, and it's a doozy. And I read the story for you at the end of this video, so stay tuned. Now, Dublin Noir, the Celtic Tiger versus the Ugly American, is a book series from Akashic Books, and I've been reading these for about a year, all different cities throughout the world. I just ordered Belfast Noir, but this one is edited by Ken Bruen, and he has those Jack Taylor novels based out of Galway, and they're great. He has a real unique original style in writing. Laura Lippman is in here, but there's a story in here by Charlie Stella, a New York writer, called Tainted Goods. And the story is so good and intense and just unique that I made copies and sent it to friends and relatives. He's coming around, the woman said. Dugan strained to see her. He'd been drugged upstairs in the bar the night before after passing off money from Marty Ryan to 3 IRA soldiers. They kept him drinking from a Jameson bottle spiked with poteen. Dugan had nearly poisoned himself from drinking. The woman was sharpening a boning knife at the table near the stairway. Dugan struggled to see clearly. It hurt to hold his head up for long. He remembered drinking in the men's room with the soldiers. He remembered them slapping his back and telling him jokes. He remembered laughing out loud and passing the bottle, but he couldn't remember much of anything else. Good stuff. I'll be reviewing that series later this year. Yeah, this Flann O'Brien, I learned a lot of new words, a lot of things, you know, unique to Dublin and Ireland in general. The had Brno English in it. It highly recommended. Now on to the story. 2-in-1. Dubliners 2019, keep in mind, doesn't say Dubliners March, so we almost did all the stories. I think we're 4 short, and we didn't do the dead, but we're gonna come up with a collaborative type thing in April, and we'll finish it up. So please join us. Mr. Flann O'Brien. Had to get out of the house. It's a beautiful day in Portland. I'm going to show you, well, that's a Portland Loo we're coming up on. They're scattered around the city. They're public toilets. When people aren't, well, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to read you a story from Mr. Flann O'Brien as well. He's, I thought he was, he's known for being a comic writer, but I'm going to read a story that's really horrific today. Wow, look at this cool park. Wow, they really did a good job on this shit. Skateboarders. Check this out. It's a little, for kids, they can play music. Look at that. Wonder how long those will last on there. Probably about a week. But wow, check that out. So there's going to be kids playing among the skateboarders? How is that going to work? Or is it all skateboards? No, those are like kid swings. I don't get it. I really don't get it. I guess these colored, like you stay within your bounds? This is a accident waiting to happen. Hate to be negative, but it looks nice. Yeah, for Dubliners, you know. I was going to dress all in St. Pat's stuff. I wouldn't go, no one give me a glance around here. You know, McCarthy, Blood Meridian, child of God. He's a necrophiliac. But this, wait till I read the story. It's where like Britney Spears and Timothy Hutton live. He wrote this story under that pseudonym in Irish. It is called 2-in-1. The story I have to tell is a strange one, perhaps unbelievable. I will try to set it down as simply as I can. I do not expect to be disturbed in my literary labors, for I am writing this in a condemned cell. Let us say my name is Murphy. The unusual occurrence which led me here concerns my relations with another man whom we shall call Kelly. Both of us were taxidermists. I will not attempt a treatise on what a taxidermist is. The word is ugly and inadequate. Certainly, it does not convey to the layman that such an operator must combine the qualities of zoologist, naturalist, chemist, sculptor, artist, and carpenter. Who would blame such a person for showing some temperament now and again, as I did? It is necessary, however, to say a brief word about this science. First, there is no such thing in modern practice as stuffing an animal. There is a record of stuffed gorillas having been in Carthage in the 5th century, and it is a fact that the Austrian prince Sigmund Herbenstein had stuffed bison in the great hall of his castle in the 16th century. It was then the practice to draw the entrails of animals and to substitute spices and various preservative substances. There is a variety of methods in use today, but except in particular cases, snakes, for example, where preserving the translucency of the skin is a problem calling for special measures. The basis of all modern methods is simply this: you skin the animal very carefully according to a certain pattern, and you encase the skinless body in plaster of Paris. You bisect the plaster when cast, providing yourself with 2 complementary molds from which you can make a casting of the animal's body. There are several substances, all very light, from which such castings can be made. The next step, calling for infinite skill and patience, is to mount the skin on the casting of the body. That is all I need explain here, I think. Kelly carried on a taxidermy business, and I was his assistant. He was the boss. A swinish, overbearing, mean boss, a bully, a sadist. He hated me, but enjoyed his hatred too much to sack me. He knew I had a real interest in the work and a desire to broaden my experience. For that reason, he threw me all the commonplace jobs that came in. If some old lady sent her favorite terrier to be done, that was me. Foxes and cats and Shetland ponies and white rabbits, they were all strictly my department. I could do a perfect job on such animals in my sleep and got to hate them. But if a crocodile came in, or a great Borneo spider, or, as once happened, a giraffe, Kelly kept them all to himself. In the meantime, he would treat my own painstaking work with sourness and sneers and complaints. One day the atmosphere in the workshop had been even fouler than usual, with Kelly in a filthier temper than usual. I had spent the forenoon finishing a cat, and about lunchtime put it on the shelf where he left completed orders. I could nearly hear him glaring at it. Where was the tail? I told him there was no tail. It was a Manx cat. How did I know it was a Manx cat? How did I know it was not an ordinary cat? Lost its tail in a motor accident or something. I got so mad that I permitted myself a squinching on cats in general, mentioning the distinctions as between Felis manual, Felis silvestris, and Felis on this occasion, something within and on snapped. The unique structure of the Manx cat. I was sure I could hear it snap. His reply to that, I had
He
moved
called
up
me
to
a
where
slob.
he was to answer his last
That was the
insult.
sort of life I was
The
having.
lonesome creature had his back to me, bending down to put on his bicycle clips. Just to my hand on the bench was one of the long, flat steel instruments we used for certain operations with plaster. I picked it up and hit him a blow with it on the back of the head. He gave out a cry and slumped forward. I hit him again. I rained blow after blow on him. Then I threw the tool away. I was upset. I went out into the yard and looked around. I remember he had a weak heart. Was he dead? I remember adjusting the position of a barrel we had in the yard to catch rainwater, the only sort of water suitable for some of the mixtures we used. I found I was in a cold sweat, but strangely calm. I went back into the workshop. Kelly was just as I had left him. I could find no pulse. I rolled him over on his back and examined his eyes, for I had seen more lifeless eyes in my day than most people. Yes, there was no doubt Kelly was dead. I had killed him. I was a murderer. I put on my coat and hat and left the place. I walked the streets for a while, trying to avoid the panic, trying to think rationally. Inevitably, I was soon in a public house. I drank a lot of whiskey and finally went home to my digs. The next morning, I was very sick indeed from this terrible mixture of drink and worry. Was the Kelly affair merely a fancy, a drunken fancy? No, there was no consolation in that sort of hope. He was dead, all right. It was as I lay in bed there, shaking, thinking, and smoking, that the mad idea came into my head. No doubt this sounds incredible, grotesque, even disgusting, but I decided I would treat Kelly the same as any other dead creature that found its way into my workshop. Once one enters a climate of horror, distinction of degree as between one infamy and another seems slight, sometimes undetectable. That evening, I went into the workshop and made my preparations. I worked steadily all next day. I will not appall the reader with gruesome detail. I need only say that I applied the general technique in flailing pattern appropriate to apes. The job took me 4 days, at the end of which I had a perfect skin, face and all. I made the usual castings before committing the remains of, so to speak, the remains to the furnace. My plan was to have Kelly on full view on a chair for the benefit of anyone who might call. Reflection convinced me that this would be far too dangerous. I had to think again. A further idea began to form. It was so macabre that it shook even myself. For days I had been treating the inside of the skin with the usual preservatives, cellulose, acetate, and the like, thinking all the time. The new illumination came upon me like a thunderbolt. I would don his skin, and when the need arose, become Kelly. His clothes fitted me, so would his skin. Why not? Another day's agonized work went into various alterations and adjustments, but that night I was able to look into a glass and see Kelly look back at me, perfect in every detail, except for the teeth and eyes, which had to be my own, but which I knew other people would never notice. Naturally, I wore Kelly's clothes. I had no trouble in imitating his unpleasant voice and mannerisms. On the second day, having dressed, so to speak, I went for a walk, received salutes from newsboys and other people who had known Kelly, and on the day after, I was foolhardy enough to visit Kelly's lodgings. Where on earth had I been? His landlady wanted to know. She had noticed nothing. What? I asked. Had that fool Murphy not told her that I had gone to the country for a few days? No. I had told that good-for-nothing to convey the message. I slept that night in Kelly's bed. I was a little worried about the other landlady would think of my own absence. I decided not to remove Kelly's skin the first night I slept in his bed, but to try to get the rest of my plan of campaign perfected and into sharper focus. I eventually decided that Kelly should announce to various people that he was going to a very good job in Canada and that he had sold his business to his assistant Murphy. I would then burn the skin. I would own a business, and what is more stupid than vanity, I could secretly flatter myself that I had committed the perfect crime. Need I say I overlooked something? The mummifying preparation with which I had dressed the inside of the skin was, of course, quite stable for the ordinary purposes of taxidermy. It had not occurred to me that a night in a warm bed would make it behave differently. The horrible truth dawned on me the next day when I reached the workshop and tried to take the skin off. It wouldn't come off. It had literally fused with my own. And in the days that followed, this process kept rapidly advancing. Kelly's skin got to live again and breathe and perspire. Then followed more days of terrible tension. My own landlady called one day inquiring about me of Kelly. I told her I had been on the point of calling on her to find out where I was. She was disturbed about my disappearance. It was so unlike me. And she said she thought she should inform the police. I thought it wise not to try to dissuade her. My disappearance would eventually come to be accepted, I thought. My Kellyness, so to speak, was permanent. It was horrible. But it was a choice of that or the scaffold. I kept drinking a lot. One night, after many drinks, I went to the club for a game of snooker. This club was, in fact, one of the causes of Kelly's bitterness towards me. I had joined it without having been aware that Kelly was a member. His resentment was boundless. He thought I was watching him and taking note of the attentions he paid the lady members. On this occasion, I nearly made a catastrophic mistake. It was a simple fact that I am a very good snooker player, easily the best in that club. As I was standing watching another game in progress, awaiting my turn for the table, I suddenly realized that Kelly did not play snooker at all. For some moments, a cold sweat stood out on Kelly's brow at the narrowness of this escape. I went to the bar. There, a garrulous lady, who thinks her unsolicited conversation is a fair exchange for a drink, began talking to me. She remarked the long absence of my nice Mr. Murphy. She said he was missed a lot in the snooker room. I was hot and embarrassed and soon went home, to Kelly's place, of course. Not embarrassment, but a real sense of danger was to be my next portion of this adventure. One afternoon, two very casual strangers strolled into the workshop saying they would like a little chat with me. Cigarettes were produced. Yes, indeed, they were plainclothesmen making a few routine inquiries. This man Murphy had been reported missing by several people. Any idea where he was? None at all. When had I seen him last? Did he seem upset or disturbed? No, but he was a impetuous type. I had recently reprimanded him for bad work. On similar other occasions, he had threatened to leave and seek work in England. The casual manner of these men worried me, but I was sure they did
Yes,
not
I've
suspect
been
the
down
truth,
in Cork for a few
and
days
that
on
they were
business.
generally
Yes.
interested in
Some
tracing
people thinking of
Murphy.
starting a natural museum
So,
down there.
I knew I was in
Technical
danger
school people,
without knowing
that
the
sort of
exact
thing.
nature of the threat I had to counter. Whiskey cheered me somewhat. Then it happened. The two detectives came back, accompanied by two other men in uniform. They showed me a search warrant. It was purely a formality. It had to be done in case of all missing persons. They had already searched Murphy's digs and found nothing of interest. They were very sorry for upsetting the place during my working hours.
Then it happened. The two detectives came back accompanied by two other men in uniform. They showed me a search warrant. It was purely a formality. It had to be done in the case of all missing persons. They had already searched Murphy's digs and had found nothing of interest. They were very sorry for upsetting the place during my working hours. A few days later, the casual gentleman called and put me under arrest for the willful murder of Murphy, of myself. They proved the change in due course and all sorts of painfully amassed evidence, including the remains of human bones in the furnace. I was sentenced to be hanged. Even if I could now prove that Murphy still lived by shedding the cursed skin, what help would that be? Where, they would ask, is Kelly? This is my strange and tragic story, and I end it with the thought that if Kelly and I must each be either murderer or murdered, it is perhaps better to accept my present fate as philosophically as I can and be cherished in the public mind as the victim of this murderous monster Kelly. He was a murderer anyway.